Do what?
I said it's a really fascinating movie.
That's by who?
Dennis Jenkins. It was recommended on NASA Space Flight.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll check it out.
I got it off of Amazon. There's supposed to be a 4th edition mid-2012. I don't think it's materialized yet.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Dwayne Ross from the Johnson Space Center. We're happy to have you here tonight for our program with the Expedition Cruise. We never start this without trying to thank everybody who made it possible. Anson Bramley just walked across the stage. It's his building he lets us use to have a great event in. There's a bunch of folks up in the back room with the imagery team, the presentation teams who put all this together for us. So let's start off by giving all those folks who make it happen a big round of applause. Pleasure to present to you the director of the Johnson Space Center, also a 3-time space traveler, Mr. Mike Coates. Mike?
Thanks, Dwayne, and good evening. Welcome to this very special event featuring our International Space Station crew members here tonight. As you may know, the 3-person crews on board the space station are there during 2 expeditions, and they overlap. They launch with one expedition and land with the next one. So tonight our crew members were on board for expeditions 31 and 32, and then 32 and 33. Now the primary goal of the expedition missions is the continuation of world-class research. The research on board the International Space Station includes human research, biological and physical sciences, technology development, Earth observations, and education outreach. Let me give you a little background on our crew members tonight. Gennady Padalka, cosmonaut, colonel, Russian Air Force. Gennady was an Expedition 31 flight engineer and the Expedition 32 commander. He was born in Krasnodar, Russia. He's a graduate of ISK Military Aviation College. He is a first-class pilot with 1,500 logged hours and has performed more than 300 parachute jumps. That's crazy. This was Gennady's 4th space flight. He previously served as commander of Expeditions 26, 19, and 9. Joe Akaba, NASA astronaut. NASA astronaut class of 2004. Joe was flight engineer for Expeditions 31 and 32. He was born in Inglewood, California, and raised in Anaheim, California. That's a coincidence, Joe. I was raised in Disney World. Disneyland, I'm sorry. Visit Disney. He has a Bachelor of Science degree in geology from the University of California and a Master's in geology from the University of Arizona. This was his 2nd space flight. Joe previously flew as a mission specialist on STS-119. Joe has logged a total of 138 days in space. Sergei Revin, cosmonaut. Sergei was flight engineer for Expeditions 31 and 32. He was born in Moscow, Russia. He graduated from the Moscow Institute of Electronics Engineering. He was a test cosmonaut at the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center. This was Sergei's 1st space flight. Sonny Williams, NASA astronaut, captain of the United States Navy, astronaut class in 1998. Sonny was an Expedition 32 flight engineer and the Expedition 33 commander. She was born in Euclid, Ohio. She has a Bachelor of Science degree in Physical Science from the United States Naval Academy. I'll pause and let that sink in. And she has a Master's in Engineering Management from Florida Institute of Technology. She has logged more than 3,000 flight hours, over 30 different aircraft. This was her 2nd space flight. She previously flew as a flight engineer on Expeditions 14 and 15. Sonny has spent 322 days in space and holds the record for total spacewalk time by a female astronaut over 50 hours. Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. Aki was flight engineer for expeditions 32 and 33. Aki was born in Tokyo, Japan. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Keio University and a master's degree in aerospace engineering from the University of Houston. Aki worked as a capsule communicator for the International Space Station and the Space Shuttle. He supported technical coordination for the Japanese experiment module, Kibo, in the H-2 transfer vehicle. This was his second space flight. He previously flew as a mission specialist on STS-124. Yuri Malenchikov, cosmonaut. Yuri was flight engineer for expeditions 32 and 33. He was born in the Volgograd region of the Ukraine. He graduated from Kharkov Military Aviation School and the Zhukovsky Air Force Engineering Academy. This was Yuri's fifth flight. He previously flew as commander of Mir 16, a mission specialist on STS-106, commander of Expedition 7, and flight engineer on Expedition 16. We currently have a three-person crew aboard the International Space Station, including NASA astronaut Kevin Ford. They'll be joined shortly by three additional crew members who will launch in the morning at 6:12 a.m. Central Time. So with that, let's have some fun and present some awards.
Okay, thanks, Mike. And we do have the opportunity now before the crew's presentation to recognize and honor a few teams and individuals who made special contributions to the mission. So at this time, with the folks who are here going to be receiving an award either for a team or individually, if y'all want to go ahead and get up and join Jacinda and Shannon by that door, on your right and my left. And we will call your name and ask you to come to the stage one at a time. And when you come on the stage, be careful with the call off in the back. We will ask Commanders Gennady Padalka and Sonny Williams, along with the lead flight directors, Adina Cantella and Emily Nelson, to join Mr. Coach as the recipient of the award.
So dark and grainy. This is so outdated.
This should work pretty good too. This works really well.
So, the award recipients will read your name and a summary of your citation, and our photographer, Bill Stafford, who's telling them where to stand, and tell everybody where to stand and take your picture.
Because I don't ask her. That's really
So now, we'll start with the team awards, and as we do the team awards, if there's any team members for that team in the audience, y'all please stand and recognize them. Keith Johnson and Melanie Mill of USA are accepting for the US EVA 18 and 19 Development and Execution Team, led by Flight Director Ed Van Sice, for superb performance in the development and execution of US EVA to replace the main bus switching Unit 1 in rapid development of an EVA to respond to difficulties encountered during EVA 18.
So you can see that.
I forget we talk in code, I'll be saying EVA, extravehicular activity, which means a spacewalk, and ISS, International Space Station, often known. So that's what those things mean. Carol Rush of Boeing and Anthony Varela of USA are accepting for the NASA Exceptional Service Medal is presented to Emily Nelson for distinguished contributions as lead flight director of the Expedition 33 mission aboard the International Space Station. The NASA Exceptional Achievement Medal is presented to David Gore in recognition of outstanding leadership of the Mission Control Center team as the HTV-2 lead flight director in the planning and execution of the second mission to the International Space Station.
So like they discussed earlier, we started off with increment 31, and that was when I was up there with Gennady and Sergey. So of course, NASA's very complicated. We had 31, we had 32, we had 33, we went up on Soyuz 30,
Yeah, I've been in training now for a couple of years, and I'm on what they call the A line. So I'm flying with 2 Russians on a Soyuz, and then Sonny's flying with a Russian, and then Aki, like we talked about. So being on the A line and she's on the B line, we went for a good year. We never saw each other. I mean, I'm training by myself. Every now and then, we might pass on the way to Russia and coming back. So it's just recently now that I even know who she is, and we got a little bit of training together.
It is much different training for a space station flight than it is a shuttle flight. The training program is about 2.5 years long. There's a lot we have to learn just in general about the space station, how it works, the different systems, and then we go ahead and we train for the very specific tasks that we think we're going to do. Here we are, I'm practicing a little bit of the robotics that we knew we were going to have, part of it with the spacewalk and part of it with the visiting vehicles. We get to eat different types of food, which is always fun.
We also get to, of course, practice spacewalking, both on the U.S. side and the Russian side. The U.S. crew members practice here at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab right down the street, and the Russians at the Hydro Lab in Star City. That training is pretty intense. We were planning on doing 1 EVA when we were getting ready to go, so we knew that 1 EVA pretty well, and we'll talk about what happened after that a little bit later.
And so here we are training as a crew of 6. We do a lot of emergency training here at the Johnson Space Center. It's a great facility. We can practice all those events that we hope will never happen, such as a fire, some kind of a toxic spill. So the training team we have is really exceptional to get us ready in case we have one of those scenarios come up. And again, you see us in these videos training together, but it is different because we really didn't see each other a lot before we got up to the space station. And it really is a testament to the training that we have, that we're able to work together so well once we get up there. And of course, launching from Russia is a little bit different than launching on the space shuttle. One of the great things when you go out to Russia is all the traditions and the people we get to meet. It really is an international endeavor, and it's great to be part of their system. This is not Photoshop.
So in case you didn't know, we launch on a Soyuz from Baikonur. Gennady and Yuri were the Soyuz commanders. Like Joe said, there's a lot of neat things that are associated with that, and part of that is tradition. Part of those traditions are signing the door of the room that you are staying in. Part of those tradition is being blessed, and like Joe said earlier, any religion, any country, being blessed before you get on a rocket is a good thing.
Here we are with our best friends, our spacesuits that will protect us in case we need it. And it's not comfortable to walk in, that's why we walk like monkeys. But they work really well when you're in the seated position. And here we are just a few hours before launch. And at this point, we are just ready to get into our spaceship and head on out. So launching on a Soyuz, it is a little bit different than the shuttle. We'll talk more about landing later. I was impressed by how smooth it was going up on the Soyuz. We have the same G-forces, a similar profile, but it really was a smooth ride. And then we take 2 days to arrive to the International Space Station.
And this is the docking target coming in for docking. And part of our training also is to learn how these vehicles work and how this vehicle docks and goes with the International Space Station. Here these guys have just opened the hatch, and Joe is entering the space station.
And it really is nice. After 2 days in that pretty small Soyuz, it is nice to get to the space station. It's really big. And for you, you kids in the audience, your parents embarrass you now, they will always embarrass you. Here we are, we just arrived, and I was lucky enough to arrive on my birthday. So my parents in front of the whole world sang me happy birthday in Spanish. So even in space, they will embarrass you. But it is pretty cool to be able to talk to your family as soon as you get there, to have all that support. And we were very fortunate that a few days after we arrived, the first Dragon, the demo vehicle, showed up. And so after being there for just a few days, we integrated with the crew that was there. And here we are looking at the vehicle in the cupola, the big window that we have. And Don and Andre and that entire team had a great plan in place. And we came in and we helped where we could. And a little bit different picture. After you grab it and you put it to the space station, you're a heck of a lot happier.
So like I was talking about, the space station is filled with laboratories. The scene right before was the Japanese lab. This is in the US lab. We've also got the Columbus, the European lab. And here in the service module, the Russian laboratory. We eat, and we'll talk about that potentially a little bit later, both in the US part and the Russian part. Here, Don and Andre and Oleg were just getting ready to leave. That's how comfortable it is in the Soyuz spacecraft. It's a little squishier than the space station, like Joe was talking. And here we are again, just to quickly talk about traditions. There's a couple things we do in Moscow before we leave. We go to Red Square, put flowers on the grave of Yuri Gagarin, before we head down to Baikonur for our final week and a half or so of quarantine. And this was Yuri, Aki, and myself getting ready to head out to our rocket.
There were too many signatures before I signed it, so that's why it was empty. I got a brand new door to sign, but you can appreciate how many crew members have passed before us. You know, they went through the same tradition, just like we are doing right now. Of course, you can see how short Sunny's hair is.
That was our last shower, by the way. And you know, one of those things that you have to remember is never take life too seriously. If you're getting on a rocket, you know you're on a one-way ride for a while at least, and you gotta just enjoy it. And just like Joe said, the ride in the Soyuz, lots of friends and family were there supporting us, by the way. I have to say thank you to my friends and family, and of course my God.
Liftoff of the Soyuz TMA 05M carrying Sonny Williams, Yuri Lemonchenko, and Aki Hoshide on a 2-day journey to the International Space Station.
Just like Joe said, the rocket's pretty smooth in comparison to the space shuttle just because of the liquid propellant, and we were happy to get on board. We were happy to get right to work because we had a lot to do as soon as we got there, and our teachers, Gennady, Sergey, and Joe were ready to show us the way.
And so we do a lot of, we're pretty much human guinea pigs, but that's part of the reason that we're up there is to learn how the human body reacts in space. So we do a lot of different things. We draw blood, we're looking at our heart, ultrasound, we do all kinds of great experiments, and luckily now with these visiting vehicles, we can get those samples back.
And that's our little friend Nefertiti. You might have heard about her and her friend Cleopatra, who came up on HTV and then returned back to Earth, so we watched how they adapted to space. Other things that we got to do, of course, we talked about our one EDA that was planned, and we got all suited up, Aki and myself, with Joe and Yuri helping us out, getting us out the door to work on that acronym MBSU. You might have heard it. Main Bus Switching Unit was right there. We ended up doing 3 EDAs while we were up there. One, the main bus switching unit didn't act as planned, per se, so we ended up having to do a second EDA to get it all installed. With the great help of the guys on the ground, came up with amazing tools. You might have heard about them, the toothbrush, the wire brush, to make sure we got all the pieces and parts done correctly. These folks on the ground worked night and day over a 3-day weekend. Nobody really had a weekend to get these types of tools ready to go for us essentially perform surgery on the bolt and the bolt housing to get this thing back connected.
Sonny Williams just became the record holder for longest time spent spacewalking by a female. She now overtook Peggy Whitson, who formerly had the record at 39 hours and 46 minutes. So Sonny Williams now number 1.
She is.
This is our liquid cooling garment, what we wear under the spacesuit to keep us cool while we're out there. And one of the coolest things is that Yuri and Gennady got to do a Russian spacewalk as well. One of the things they launched was this satellite to watch how it re-enters back into the atmosphere. It has some sensors associated with it. Another thing that they did was, again, the space station is growing, it's changing. They removed and replaced or changed the position of this thing called the Strela from one module to the other. No small feat of work. This thing is pretty long and pretty big. They're getting ready for the next Russian module to come up, hopefully this summer. This is Joe's favorite friend.
Or Sonny's dance partner.
Of course, that's our 7th crew member out there getting ready to perform some activities. And we actually launched 5 more satellites from the space station using the Japanese robotic arm, and just a help of a spring force. And that launched on the anniversary of Sputnik. And we also saw the ATV depart from the station twice after the second try. And then after that, we did see SpaceX 1, the first Dragon vehicle for the commercial resupply, come to us with ice cream. Of course, we had so many vehicles. We had the Japanese HTV. Also, we had 2 Progresses coming up, and we can see the HTV departing. And just make sure you know, this is not sped up.
And NASA did a nice partnership with the U.S. Forest Service, so Smokey Bear was the talisman for our Soyuz. We took him along, not the full-size Smokey, but we brought him along with us, and it's a great partnership, and it was very appropriate this time. When the wildfires were going on in Colorado, we were able to take photos of those, send them back down to the ground, but we just wanted to bring awareness to our natural environment and the impact that wildfires can have. And so that's why you may see Smokey every now and then, and we were lucky to have him with us yesterday.
One other thing we spend some time doing is exercise while we're up on the space station. You saw me on the bike, and Joe is here on the resistive exercise device called A-Red. And we also have a treadmill. And we do a couple hours a day of this type of stuff to make sure our bones and our muscles are able to support us when we come home.
The last 2 months, I would like to thank our 32 mates here who have taught us how to live and work in space. And of course, we had a lot of fun in space.
It was a sad day when Joe and Gennady and Sergei closed the hatch and came home. But pretty cool to say goodbye to them, and then a couple hours later get NASA TV up on the space station and watch them land and actually watch them get out of the capsule.
And the landing on a Soyuz is a little bit different than the show. You definitely know when you hit the ground like we saw that. But you probably also noticed that there was the Russian helicopter there as we were landing. They have a great system in place to get us out of the vehicle. And then we are back, I was back in Houston 23 hours after we landed. So it's a very efficient process.
So we had a little bit of time, just the 3 of us, Yuri, Aki, and myself, to really enjoy the vastness and how big the space station was, and our favorite place here, the cupola, which Aki describes as a black hole, because you can get stuck in there just wanting to hang out and take pictures and look at the planet, look out at the universe. I mean, half an hour can go by before you know it, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get back to work. But you just can't help but wanting to take pictures, try to share that, send that down home. We did a lot of geography quizzes with friends and family back home, just because the planet, it looks amazing. It's moving, it's growing, it's alive, And you see that from space, you see the atmosphere, nothing's stagnant down here. Everything's moving, and like I said, it's changing, and you can see all those changes, even at night. I've always thought that if we went to another planet, we'd have to take a lap around the planet at night, because people are living in places.
Thanks to Sunny and her crew. Thank you for a great handover, and I'm ready to assume command of the International Space Station. Thank you very much.
Like was mentioned, Kevin, Eugenie, and Oleg, they came up a couple weeks after we were a crew of 3, and we became a crew of 6 again. And it was, again, another sad day when we closed the hatch and came home. But it's also nice to come back to our favorite planet, Earth.
So like Joe said, the landing was still a little different from Space Shuttle. And of course, when the parachute deploys, we are just like on a roller coaster. And of course, Yuri experienced it so many times, but for Sunny and I, it was the first time, but we were screaming, "Woo! Do it again, do it again!" because it was so cool.
I don't know if I agree with that.
The landing was a little bit abrupt and sudden, but you know, it's a good feeling too. And we were, you might have saw this was a night landing, which was just a little bit before sunrise, and so we were hanging out for about 20 minutes or so before the SAR forces came, but they knocked on the window, said hello, ready to open the hatch and ready to grab us and pull us out. And I think it was about -15 or so out there, -15°C. But we're all wrapped up, and I think we're all still, the 3 of us were a little bit warm from our ride down anyway. All these great support people were the ones who were freezing out there, but they had big smiles on their face, and friends from all the agencies ready to welcome us back home.
What brand of ice cream did y'all have brought up there?
I didn't get any ice cream.
You sound bitter.
I'm a little angry about that.
We had Down Home Bluebell ice cream sundae. It was awesome, actually. It was pretty amazing that you could, you know, we were talking about these new spacecraft and the capability that they have, and you know, we quickly mentioned Progress. We were able to see 2 Progresses launch and just a couple hours later in the morning and launch and then a couple hours later at lunchtime arrive at the space station. That's pretty incredible. So the ice cream would have stayed cold on a Progress as well. But in coming home, the SpaceX, we saw it, you know, be disconnected from the robotic arm and then land back on the planet just a couple hours later too. So I think that's the new shape of things to come. And you know, maybe we're not as quick as 30 minutes Pizza Hut, but we're getting close. So it's pretty awesome to see spacecraft coming and going in low Earth orbit that short of a time.
Been there.
I was going to ask, how did that feel with no gravity?
It's awesome.
Yeah, I'd go back right now. It was too fun. You know, floating from, you know, one side of the module to the other side of the module, and floating things, and you can just push something to pass it on to people. So it's just great. You gotta try it someday.
Definitely want to go. You never get tired of it. And we had the chance to watch the Avengers. I'm a superhero kind of freak, and so to be up there and be able to jump up the Hulk or sit on the wall like Spider-Man is pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yes, thanks for coming. What was the reentry like compared to the shuttle when you come down in that small capsule? What was the unit like during reentry?
I think we had like 4.4 maximum, but it's this direction, so it felt heavy. And of course, Yuri, as a commander, he has to report all the G's coming up and then coming down. You know, but for us, you know, we just held it tight and made sure that we can breathe. But you can still tolerate. It's not like, you know, you're not going to pass out or anything.
We've got a bunch of kids over here, so any one of them.
I don't know, I little bit crazy. But, you know, it was a challenge from maybe somebody you heard of, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who works for one of the news agencies. But he was interested, in, as he has been for quite some time, about health and health issues. And he came down to Johnson Space Center, and we showed him around and showed him all the exercise equipment that we have, as well as the food, because that plays a big part in nutrition and how your body acclimatizes or adapts to space and how it adapts back here at home. And so then he mentioned to me, hey, by the way, I'm doing this triathlon in September, would you want to do it? And I said, well, I'm not going to be on the planet, I'm going to be someplace else, so I'm not sure I can do it. And he said, oh, that's too bad. So we started talking more and more, and after he saw the exercise equipment, he was joking around that we could probably do at least part of it with the exercise equipment. So he got me interested in it. But bottom line is, you know, also I think it's really important for physical fitness just as a lifestyle thing. It's sort of what we do as astronauts. All of us work out, and you really have to work out to help your body adapt to space and also to come back home onto the planet. So it was just a way to sort of emphasize and hopefully create a couple new triathletes out there. I think you might be one. Is that true? Oh, she did. All right, cool. So I was the zookeeper for the most part for the spiders. Aqua, by the way, was the zookeeper for the fish. You can ask him about that next. But the spiders were sent up with in a cavity, and then there was a couple other little areas where there were fruit flies. And periodically we would open a plunger and allow the fruit flies to come out. Unbeknownst to them, they were coming out to be food. And the poor little guys, I was watching them trying to fly. That was also very interesting, how they would adapt to flying. They didn't love it, by the way. The spider adapted pretty darn well. She was able to climb around. The fruit flies were trying to fly, and that doesn't really work in space because there's no air. So they were easy prey, unfortunately, fortunately for the spider. And we also, the second part of that, to keep them being fed for a longer period of time, because fruit flies, I think, have a pretty short lifespan. We had fruit fly larvae up there that was also in another cavity. So as time went on, we opened one container of fruit flies and another, then another, and so she was getting fed. Both of them were getting fed for at least 3 or 4 weeks.
Yes.
Did it hurt whenever you landed?
It's not soft, but it's a really neat spaceship because they do a lot of things to make it feel as good as it can. We have seats that are made individually for us, and they'll collapse when we hit the Earth. We're almost on little shock absorbers, so your seat will move up right before you land, and then it goes back down. There's also some rockets that will fire just a split second before you hit the Earth. So we do all these things so that it feels a little bit better, but it's you definitely know when you hit the Earth, and I would not call it soft. Yes, sir. Okay, I'll start with 32. So of course we have the 3 partner countries that were involved with our flight, and the symbol going across the Earth there is the astronaut symbol. We have our names along the outside, and we have of course the International Space Station, and now was a former teacher before I came to NASA, so we have the flame of knowledge on top just to remind us how important education is, and that's the 32 patch.
And for the 33 patch, you know, of course you have the Earth and you have the station coming out of it. The 3 countries which the crew members represented, but we have 5 stars that represents each country or entity that is participating in this space station program.
Yes. The 3 of us were up there, I believe it was 125 days.
And I think we were at 127 days.
It wasn't long enough, and they had to beat us by a couple.
But you have to ask Gennady how long in total he's been in space.
Yeah, we have a tradition when we're up there to have a party after being up there for 100 days. So Sergey and I were up there for 100, and this guy at that time had been up there for 700 days.
And Yuri and his 5 flights is just a couple days behind Gennady.
That's his view.
Well, do you know what she did on her previous flight? She ran a marathon while she was up there. So she went from a marathon to the triathlon, so maybe an Ironman is in her future.
Right after Joe. So there's this young man here in a red tie. You have a question, little boy?
Gennady and Yuri, why do you keep going to space?
I decided to stop.
More importantly, what should the children in this audience expect to do in the future in space?
Yes, we have a lot of young people, and this is the next generation of the space explorers. And when watching the film and when watching at us, you can notice that no matter in which country you live, no matter which nationality you have, we should work together in space. We have to work together in space, and it seems to me we are doomed to work together in space just to explore solar system, universe, just to save our planet, just to improve life on the ground, and the future in your hands.
I am a cosmonaut, it's my job.
I say don't give up. You know, you might encounter, difficulties, but, like our first CBA, if we gave up, the station wouldn't be, half done. But these guys in the audience didn't give up. They worked hard and they came up with a solution. So if you don't give up, you will be able to resolve things. Where do we keep the fish? Well, we have a very small aquarium in the Japanese module. It's like maybe that big, and we have 2 of them. So we have the fishes in there, and we have a feeding system. It's very automated, so we don't, as astronauts, we don't have to feed them. It's in between 2 tapes, and the tape will go up and open up every time. And we were told what time the feeding starts. And we had cameras. We couldn't see it directly, but we had cameras, so everyone was aware. And Yuri every morning asked me, so what time is the feeding time? What time? We went over and watched them get fed, and that's when they are very active. So that's when we can see them on the monitor.
I just want to add one thing about the fish. Just like the spiders, it was really interesting to see them adapt. Initially they were sort of swimming, if you would call it swimming, just sort of floating around in the water, trying to avoid the air bubbles. And they really didn't have a good orientation, but it was pretty amazing soon, and it's partially with light. Correct me if I'm wrong, but partially with light, they were able to swim. I mean, it was just like a normal aquarium, and you see them swimming sideways, horizontal, like they should be, in the correct orientation, head up, body down based on the light, and then diving up and down. So it was pretty awesome to see animals that are able to just adapt to space. Our organism obviously was born here on Earth, so we've adapted to Earth, but it's pretty neat to see that you can, if you're healthy and ready to go, you can adapt to being anywhere practically. I adapted okay. Only got lost once or twice. That space station is big.
Young lady up top. Yeah, it's amazing when you first get to space. It takes you a couple days to get used to being in that microgravity. And for me, when I landed, it's amazing as you start getting closer and closer to Earth and you enter into the atmosphere, how heavy everything feels. Your arms feel really heavy, your head feels really heavy, and you wonder, how do we live on this planet? Because it does seem like gravity is really, really strong. But it's amazing. After about 2 days, I felt pretty good. Still, my balance for me, was the hardest part. When I would stand up, I kind of walked like Frankenstein because I wanted to tip over. But after about 2 days, I was feeling pretty good. Yes, sir. Right now, we're good through 2020. We have agreements with the international partners, and I know there are discussions to try to extend that out to 2028. Is that correct?
I'm excited.
They have permanent brain freeze.
Our flight docs are here, represented and got an award today, and they warned us about that. So we didn't eat so fast, and so we were okay.
Yeah, maybe. In space, I like the Fiesta chicken. It was like a spicy chicken. You could put it on a tortilla, and that was pretty good.
I liked Russians have this type of cottage cheese, sort of yogurt cottage cheese called tvorig, and they have it with nuts, and it's a little bit sweet, and that stuff is awesome. So I would highly recommend try it if you can find it someplace here in the U.S. Tvorig Surekami was my favorite.
Well, for me, as a Japanese astronaut, we have a tradition to bring curry rice on board, and that was my favorite too. Of course, curry is Indian, but we kind of inherited it from the Indians.
For me, I like and I prefer coffee. It's Hawaiian. I like cottage cheese and enchilada.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, sir.
Number one, Sonny, I'm wearing a New York Rangers jersey in your honor, and I have a New York Yankees World Series back in 1998 when they beat the Padres 4-0, and I will give this to you later. If you don't want it, you can give it to Brian, and you both can burn it at the football game.
You betcha.
Gennady, on your spacewalk, you were working with a panel that I believe contained materials and things like that, different colors and depths, and you had trouble removing it. I was wondering if you ever did get around to be able to take that off, or can you explain a bit about the experiment?
You have no difficulty. Because it's pretty easy. It's weightlessness. Just some clamps and that's all. It's pretty. It was pretty easy to set up, to install. Yes, you can confirm. Because we work together.
You're right. If you remember, there was one panel which we wasn't able to remove, but we decided to leave it and learn how to do that better. Later, I'm sure some crews will remove it.
Oh, it's still out there.
Yeah, it's still there.
I think we're good. Oh, go ahead.
We'll let Sonny answer that one.
Philosophical questions here. But you know, there's a myriad of experiments that we did. I think Mr. Coates talked a little bit about it just in generalities, but specifically, you know, just material science. We did an experiment called VAS, which was checking out different materials up there and how they burn in space. You know, just how would you make spacecraft a little smarter with other materials, because it's a whole different environment. That's one. Capillary flow experiment is looking at capillary flow. Of course, it's like you know, water in a straw, or milk in a straw. Here on Earth, it has to fight against gravity. In space, it doesn't have to fight against gravity. So that opens up a whole new ideas of how to maybe make fuel tanks for spacecraft that don't have to have pumps, which might break on a 6-month mission to Mars. And so those types of things are going on all the time. There's a bunch of, and those are long-range experiments that we do. Our crews and the crews before us and the crews after us will do, because there's a whole bunch of different test points that they're looking at to make, to identify, you know, to further make those, you know, those types of discoveries and make them into actually fruition, turn them into fruition. But we also did a bunch of experiments on ourselves. You know, we're thinking about the next generation and what these kids in the audience are going to do. You know, here we are in low Earth orbit with a laboratory that we can relatively easily get to, and try out a whole bunch of things. And we did a bunch of experiments on ourselves to understand what happens to humans who live in space for long periods of time. You know, 4 to 6 months, or you know, 300, 600, 700 days over time. What happens? There's bone density issues, there's muscle mass issues, there's radiation issues, and so there's a myriad of medical experiments that we are doing on ourselves the whole time we're up there, and also when we come back. It, you know, translates to how you know, we recover back on Earth after you go in space for a long period of time. So I think, you know, that those are just a couple, and they have spin-offs that come back to Earth. Some of those medical experiments. You know, we're trying to figure out how to do that analysis up in space, which will make for smaller pieces of equipment that allows people to take those types of equipment to places that are pretty remote, like Antarctica, and they are able to do some testing and analysis themselves, just like we're doing up in space. So I think space creates a little bit of creativity in the way you think about stuff. Here on Earth, you could say, oh, I can just go to the hospital and I can use a big machine to find out what's wrong with me. But up in space, we're doing our own ultrasounds of our eyes, our heart, our muscles, you know, our parts inside of us with remote guiders, you know, the BMEs and the docs and all their support crew, and that's lending itself to you know, other ideas here on Earth. Also, the space station itself has a whole regenerative ecosystem. We process urine. I know these kids are like, what? We actually do drink our pee after it's been processed a little bit, and those innovative ideas of how we do that has translated into filtering systems that we've used in disaster relief areas where there's no good drinking water. So there's a myriad of things that come out of these types of creative thinking that you have to do when you're looking at how do you put a crew in space, keep them there for a long period of time, and then bring them back home to Earth safely. So there's a lot that's going on, and there is a spin-off, part of our website, on NASA website, there's a spin-off portion that you can read on a bunch of those types of things, but I've only told you with a couple, so I'll be quiet now, but there's tons of stuff that come out of this. Again, we're thankful to just have been a part of it. It's only a small segment of the lifetime of the International Space Station, so we're just a couple little data points for all of this science that's going on. So Dwayne, with that, I think we're done with answering questions. Your program is next.
Okay, well, thank you folks for coming. Thank you very much for coming. As I mentioned, the crew will be outside to sign autographs for a little while. We don't have a lot of time, but we'll be there. So the table is outside this door over to your right there. So thank you. Appreciate you coming.